guys, my name is Ashley Morgis and I am a Research and Extension Officer with Southern Farming Systems. Today we are here at the Inverleigh site and we're having a look at a trial which is demonstrating deep banding urea at sowing. The main aim of this trial is looking at demonstrating different fertiliser management techniques to what is currently used as standard practice across the region. We are looking here to demonstrate deep banding urea. The aim is to improve nitrogen use efficiency through better timing, utilisation and placement of banded nitrogen. It's common practice in our region to apply large amounts of unprotected urea top-dressed in season. This is often at a timing when the crops are going into stem extension, which often coincides with when our soils are at field capacity and there is often a lot of waterlogging, particularly in our region. There are two main issues with applying nitrogen in season when paddocks are too wet. There is the trafficability issue, so it's hard to get onto the paddocks with the machinery to apply the nitrogen, which means that we may not be able to get the timings right. So that can be an issue in terms of getting the nitrogen on at the right time for the crop when it has its peak requirements. There are also environmental issues with applying nitrogen under waterlogged conditions or when soils are at field capacity. The increased rate of denitrification will occur and this can cause more gaseous amounts to be lost to the environment, which is bad for the environment but also quite inefficient for growers applying nitrogen at that time, as a large proportion of that will be lost rather than going into the plants themselves. Previous studies have shown that deep banding urea below the surface can have a slow release effect. So by banding it under the soil, the nitrogen is converted from soil nitrogen into plant available nitrogen at a slower rate, which is, as I said, a slow release effect, meaning that the nitrate is available to the plant for a more continual period. These trials that we're undertaking this year are a continuation of some work that Southern Farming Systems has done previously. In 2018 and 2019, we did similar work with deep banding urea. We did work in southwest Victoria and also had a site in Gippsland. And we looked at deep banding urea directly below the surface at different rates and also different depths. Results from Toongabbie, which is over in Gippsland from previous years, showed that there may be a correlation between the depth at which we place nitrogen and the rate at which it is released or the plant has access to it. As depth of urea below the seed increased, grain protein also saw an increase. However, we saw a decline in yield. As we reached a particular yield in crop, we knew the yield potential, and increases in grain protein suggest the plant accessed this late, converting it to protein instead of grain yield. In 2020, this trials work has continued and we have two sites, one here at Inverleigh and also one at our Streatham Branch trial site at Wollora. The trials this year are looking at two depths, 3 and 7 centimetres below the seed, 3 nitrogen rates, 0, 50 and 100 kilos of N per hectare deep banded at sowing, and we also have top dressed versus no in season urea. The main purpose of the top dressed urea is to show how much additional nitrogen was taken up from the surface applied and how much may have been lost to the environment or remaining in the soil. Here at Inverleigh we had a very low starting nitrogen, only 40 kilos of N per hectare, plus we estimated some mineralised nitrogen. We have some very visual responses so far, more by N rate than by depth. Let's take a look. Here we have no urea deep banded at sowing, however it has been top dressed in season. As we move along to this plot, we have nothing deep banded at sowing and no applications in season. Here we have 50 kilos of nitrogen deep banded at sowing with a nitrogen top up in season. Here we have 50 kilos of nitrogen deep banded at sowing, but it has had no applications go on in season. Here we have 100 kilos of N deep banded at sowing, and this has been topped up with further urea in season as well. And finally we have 100 kilos deep banded at sowing, and this has had no top ups in season. The critical growth period in wheat begins at stem extension and continues through to flowering. This is where nitrogen requirements are at their highest, and it is important to ensure nitrogen supply is good during this period. We are assessing in this trial soil nitrogen and plant tissue nitrogen at the start and end of this critical period to help determine the nitrogen supply and demand. We are also collecting yield data, grain protein and post-harvest deep nitrogen sampling to allow us to determine nitrogen use efficiency by treatment. Thanks for watching. If you are after any further information about the trial or the project itself, please feel free to contact us.